Welcome to Stories of Mattoon, the podcast where the quiet roads and corn-lined horizons of central Illinois come to life. Here, in this small town, shaped by hard work, faded storefronts, and generations of family roots, history isn't something in a textbook. It's something people still live every day. In each episode, we sit down with local historians, lifelong residents, and Toonies, whose lives have been shaped by Mattoon's past and present. These are the stories that built the town, told by the people who keep them alive today. So, pull up a chair and join us in talking about anything and everything Mattoon.
Yeah. Come on in, Tom. Play it so pretty.
Yeah.
I like that. Hey, everybody. This is your friends, Jordan and Tom, your fellow Toonies, recording episode number 2 of Toonie Loons, the podcast that brings the voices of Mattoon straight to you. From local legends to everyday stories, we're here to share the moments, memories, and characters that make this little town unforgettable. Welcome to Toonie Loons. All right, welcome back to Toonie Loons. Today we are speaking with Mattoon's very own Bernie de Buhr. Bernie, how are you?
Good, Jordan. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing good. We're at Tom's studio in Nashville, and of course, talking to you up there in Mattoon. What's the weather doing up there?
I'm sitting here at Peterson Park in my car. That's my office temporarily here to get away from the store. But I'm looking at about 6 inches of snow on the ground. It's pretty.
Oh.
I like snow. I like wintertime. I like it to be over.
Yeah, it's exactly. Like when
I saw from December 10th, I always thought my birthday is February 1st. If we could have 6 weeks of good winter, then for my birthday, February 1st, be 75 degrees, I'd be happy.
Yeah, there you go.
Just have a wrap up. But that's
I'll take that kind of winter.
Mine's in March, and it just always has been so unpredictable. You just never know with Illinois, of course.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we were going to ask you a couple questions, and we want to start out with, everyone knows you from the Seed and Feed store. Can you tell us a little bit about when your family started the store?
My great-granddad, my grandfather started back in 1914. I'm not sure as far as the timeline. We have 3 separate rooms, I guess we call them. We have the main store, which is where we do our retail business out of.
Mm-hmm.
That at that time was a saloon. Our main store was a notoriously not safe, but night saloon is what that was at one time. We get that sliding door that goes into what we call the middle room. We keep our mixer in there.
Uh-huh.
That's actually where we started our business, was in that middle section of the buildings. And then I think back in 1965 or 66, my dad was renting the warehouse from the Degler family, and also that side parking lot where we have our greenhouse. And so he bought that in 1965, 66, bought that property. So that's now we own. Of course, we own the what we call the main room, I guess, is kind of what we refer to it as, in the middle room in the warehouse.
Sure.
But we actually started there in that middle room, they were selling just back at that time, I don't know, there was like 13 or 14 feed stores in Mattoon at that time.
Oh, wow.
But that's back because everybody in Mattoon had something. I recall as a kid myself vaguely going, like out to Grant Park was not really part of Mattoon. It was kind of its own part of Mattoon, but people had livestock out there. They had chickens in their backyard, out in Grant Park, and I recall taking stuff out there when I was a kid. So my point was, I guess, that way back when everybody had something. These farms were much smaller farms. I mean, everybody had livestock. They had grain farm, they had horses, pigs. They're more self-sustaining type. So you had more chances to sell stuff. But over time, like my dad said, it wasn't like we put these places out of business. It just time took care of it. We've had succession in our business with my dad from his from his dad and myself, and and my two nephews work up there. So we got this succession going on still up there.
Weren't you guys the basis for the show Succession? No, I'm just kidding with you. So
the de Buhrs.
Yeah, the de Buhrs. There you go.
Not the diamond people either, spelled differently,
Right. And I remember the store, of course, working for you and Dad, circa the 90s there. And so I'm envisioning when you're talking about the room with the mixer, and then, of course, the warehouse. Did that come on later then?
That did, yeah. That was actually my dad told me years ago. I don't know for sure, but that's what. At one time when he was younger was a grocery store in there, and that's actually where Walker's started, was where our warehouse was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's, so I don't know. That's what he always told me over the years. That's where Walker's actually started, was where our big warehouse is. But then I recall as a kid, I was 6 or 7 years old. I was born in 1960, so 7 years of age is when Dad would have bought that. But that was like a flooring place, I recall. They sold out of his carpeting or just flooring products, linoleum, whatever was used back in that time. I don't know, but that's what that was. As I recall, being the last business prior to us renting it. So we had it for a couple of years. We rented it for a couple of years. Then it became ours. So.
Yeah, and it's survived the years. Of course, you guys have had, some fires up there with Villa, and then actually Walker's as well there.
Right.
Yeah, and so was there a location previous, or was that the first location where Deurs was it?
That was the first location, yeah.
Okay, and still there. Wow, that's amazing. So how's the business changed, Bernie, over the years that you've seen?
Well, my lifetime, I've seen it go almost full circle. It seems like, I was, back in high school. I mean, there was still lots of livestock being raised. These farmers were still raising cattle. They were still raising pigs or whatever. And just how farmers were. That kind of evolved more into grain farming, less livestock for a long time. The pet food thing, like you see now, all these expensive pet foods kind of came on when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Well, stores like us, or where these companies like Science Diet, they came to stores like us to introduce their pet food. So we were like the pioneers of that stuff.
Okay.
Iams dog food, like I say, we were probably one of the first stores in Illinois to sell Iams dog food, was probably our store. So we've been selling Iams since the beginning. Science Diet, not that many years, but the big pet food push started coming on. And at that time there was a lot of money in pet food. At that time, I'm talking 30, 35 years ago, there was real good money for it, So that's why I pushed for several years. And then all of a sudden you started seeing that stuff get into the discount stores. You started seeing these pet food specialty chain stores popping up everywhere. You started seeing the online shopping.
The big box stores.
Yeah, people got more mobile, and there's nothing to go to Champaign to buy a bag of dog food, for people. But we still sell a lot of pet food. I mean, I think the foundation I built doing that is carried over today. But now the livestock's made a big comeback. So that's my point. Going full circle is when 30 years ago, livestock was dying off. Well, now it's coming back.
Wow.
So it's kind of fun to see that.
That's interesting. You were saying, about the people having chickens, and nowadays in a lot of towns, people are going back to having their own chickens if they can get away with it. If they'll allow it.
People here in town do. I know people even got beehives here in town.
Wow.
Honey's good stuff. That's
local honey. Yeah.
Honey and eggs, man, for breakfast.
Yep. There you go.
All right, we're going to take a brief pause and take a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with Bernie de Buhr.
Have you been worried about fire, heat, or pesky little drafts? Fear not, citizens. Introducing Super Shield Asbestos, the miracle material that doctors, engineers, and even the retired spelunker all agree is absolutely indispensable. Line your walls, ceilings, and even your stove. Enjoy unmatched durability, remarkable heat resistance, and a look of modern industriousness that will make your neighbors nod with envy. Protect your home, elevate your style, and wrap your world in the confidence of true innovation. Rest assured, friend, you can breathe easy knowing Super Shield Asbestos is the solution for just about everything. Well, except maybe living forever, but who's counting?
I have an odd question that's just something, and we kind of touched base with it just for a moment with Chris Surdick, but the, Broadway is, nice and long, and then I've always wondered why it just ends, kind of right where Casey Summers begins, and then your guys' strip there. Do you know, was there a reason why it was separated from Broadway, or historically why those buildings popped up there versus, being maybe, on the back side of the block you're on?
I do not know that. No, that's a good question. I don't know. There were times there were 6 sets of tracks back there when my dad was young.
Yeah, that's what I was.
So that was probably it. Yeah,
tracks, but they were demurrage tracks. They weren't running tracks like that. Dad talked like there were at one time 2 sets of running tracks back there. I recall the tracks. They were like the train ran through Mattoon for probably until 1977, 78. I'm not quite sure. Then they took the tracks out like a year or so later. But and the thing was, at the time, I walk out now and just see how close those trains were to the buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, you could park a car by our store. You could drive a car down the alley, and you had the tracks. So they weren't very far past those buildings. I do recall trains came through every 25 minutes. That was kind of their schedule. And we got those light fixtures hanging from the ceiling. They would sway a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, through the vibration. And so I just wondered how much would be left today if those trains still ran. All the vibration, all the more, those things would probably caved in years ago, But
wow.
The Lord said, take them out because we need the Deurs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We were talking with Chris about the roundabout and the train and then the subway system.
The Big Dig.
Yeah, the Big Dig, his book that's just come out.
It's an amazing book.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. It's all the time he put into that book, let alone just the Mattoon history stuff. It's just an amazing job he's done.
Oh, yeah.
I tell people all the time, if you've never been there, which I've only been there myself 3 or 4 times, but if you've never been there, you're missing out.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's such an amazing thing.
And we're looking forward to having him back, and you as well, throughout our various episodes. Now, what I was just thinking about was your hot sauce and how you kind of incorporated, the food into the store. How did that come about? You deciding to do that?
I always liked to cook. I've always been, like a big kick. My dad used to call our house. We had landlines years and years ago. I've always liked to cook, and he'd call our house, in the evening, and Diane would answer the phone, and Mr. Deur, and he'd always ask Diane, "What Bernie fix you for supper tonight?" It's like, I know your dad thinks that you do all the cooking. I never cook, but I've always enjoyed cooking. I don't know. We got selling years ago. Got selling apple butters and things like that from this place down in Missouri. He used to supply Moran's Orchard at one time years ago, and he popped in our store for 3 or 4 years. He was coming to our store, and I asked him one time. I said, "What do you guys sell besides apple butter, pumpkin butter?" He's like, "Well, I got this line of salsas we sell a lot of called Mrs. Renfro salsas, which you see that stuff everywhere now."
Yeah,
and so that kind of, next time he came through a few weeks later, he brought some salsas to us, and that kind of kicked things off. And I don't know. I started going to hot sauce shows and hot sauce stores and other places, and I found places to purchase stuff wholesale, and just kind of evolved into what it is. Of course, the barbecue scene kind of came along, and the barbecue seasonings have been a big thing. In fact, I got my own seasonings that we sell up there.
Yes. Tell us about that.
I had this guy down in Texas. I used to buy his stuff for a lot of years. OBQ's barbecue company, and also the guy was kind of my mentor in a way. I'd always call him, pick his brain all the time. I'd order stuff from him a lot, and I'd call and kind of pick his brain for ideas. And he told me one time, "Quit buying my stuff and come up with your own." I said, "Well, I've been kind of thinking of a couple of different things, and I'll help you do it. I'll kind of coach you along on some things." And so I came up with my chili spice, and this one called Burn Dog Spice that I've got. That was my second one, and I've got 4 that are mine. And There's one called 16th Street Pub Rub. My son Ben lived on 16th Street. That's what he called his man cave garage, was the 16th Street Pub.
Oh, okay.
So that's where that name comes from. And there's one called Gator Breath that is my Cajun spice. And so I've got 4 that are actually mine that I came up with myself. That I don't make them; they're made in Texas, but they're shipped to us.
Sounds like it's getting serious now. Do you have the hot sauce on your belt like some of the guys?
I don't anymore.
Maybe the bandoleros with different bottles of spices and different things.
Yeah, like the guy on YouTube, Stale Cracker. You watch him, Stale Cracker. He's entertaining.
Oh yeah,
he's actually the guy's a retired state cop down in Louisiana. Stale Cracker. Check him out sometime on Instagram. But he's entertaining. But he's always cooking Louisiana stuff. He's got this belt. Like it holds his seasonings, holds 2 beers. He's got like little container. It's just kind of a entertaining guy. But
the hot food. I had a real good friend of mine that opened a hot sauce store in 1999 in Peoria. But I went to 2 hot food shows with him. One of them was in Austin, Texas. And I immediately was amazed on the people in the crowd, the fans and the buyers of sorts, they would, eat a whole habanero like on site. Like they would literally just while they were, giving taste tests and whatnot, they would throw habaneros and different peppers out to people, and they would just eat them immediately. And I remember one fella in particular, how he changed colors like immediately. His whole face turned red, and he just started beads of sweat. But he didn't have any other reaction. He was fine with it.
The peppers they've changed them so much where everyone's got that's got so many million Scoville units, and they're like, well, we're going to design a pepper that has 10 times that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like flavor in there. I mean, I don't mind the heat. I enjoy a little bit of heat, but I guess in my 20s I would dabble with habanero and a bit of a ghost pepper, but now that's my favorite Serrano. Now that's my
I like Serranos. They're just kind of a jalapeno type pepper, I think.
Yeah.
I like the poblanos. I like the New Mex type peppers. The Hatch chilies, like this kind of my go-to now.
I did have an ex-girlfriend that called me in the middle. I gave lessons for years up in Samuel Music in Champaign. And it was in the middle of one of my guitar lessons, and my phone just kept on going and going. And I was like, oh, gosh, this must be something. She keeps on calling. So I answer, and she just immediately starts cussing me out. And I'm just like, what? I'm in the middle of a lesson. She's like, my teeth are numb. I'm like, what? She's like, my teeth are numb. I'm like, your teeth are numb. She's like, I ate one of your peppers out of your garden. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't recommend doing that, And I think what she ate was a salsa verde pepper, which aren't necessarily known for their heat, but they, pepper plants, there's always one of the peppers that'll be a little hotter than the rest of them.
Oh yeah, kind of Russian roulette.
Yeah. So there's and then sometimes, and I've had it happen to me, not quite in the emotion that she was in, where I've been surprised, but she literally she was mad at me for about a week because like literally her all of her teeth went numb.
Well, hello friends. Have you been feeling a little stressed out, tired, or just plain overwhelmed by your daily duties? Well, the solution is finally here. And wouldn't you know it, your doctor insists upon it. Yes, sir, the good folks at Corn Belt Cigarettes are proud to offer the only smoke endorsed by 9 out of 10 local physicians. The 10th one, well, he was out sick that day for reasons we can't disclose. Crafted from premium sun-kissed leaves and wrapped with the kind of care usually reserved for newborn babies, Corn Belt cigarettes are guaranteed to soothe away your nerves. Why, some doctors say a Corn Belt after dinner can settle the stomach, improve your posture, and according to one particularly enthusiastic dentist, put that shine on your teeth. Corn Belt cigarettes, recommended by experts who definitely went to some kind of school. So go ahead, Follow doctor's orders. Light up a corn belt. Breathe easy. And remember, if it was good enough for Grandma Mabel, it's probably sort of fine for you. You and Tom have a lot of in common. The cooking and also music. I'm not sure if some people might not know out there that Bernie, you're been a big jazz aficionado for a lot of years.
Oh, I got hooked on smooth jazz when it first came out back in actually jazz fusion came out like in the late 70s, early mid 70s. I guess that it had about a 4 or 5 year life. The real jazz fusion.
Yeah.
This guy Mattoon named John Arena that owns Villa Pizza. He came down from Chicago years ago. We all know John.
Oh yeah.
But I was 13 at the time. I remember that because John was 17 or 8. Well, he turned 70 yesterday, so he was.
Happy birthday, John!
Happy birthday!
Yeah, but he was. I got to know John, and we got to listen to some stuff, and he turned me on to this band called Weather Report. This guy, John McLaughlin, the Mahavishnu Orchestra. If you like to get weirded out, put the stuff on. But I like it. I still listen to it.
Yeah.
The Return to Forever was one band I got into real well. Probably Miles Davis started. He kind of ended his career with the jazz fusion music, and he was kind of heading that way a little bit, But it kind of evolved into smooth jazz, the Kenny G type stuff. Everybody recognizes Kenny G. Mm-hmm. I got turned on to some stuff back in college. This guy Jeff Lorber was my first person I got turned on to was Jeff Lorber. He's a jazz fusion, jazz piano keyboard player. But I got to where I followed him a lot, and I just kind of, that was what I listened to in high school. My buddies were all listening to Foreigner, Little River Band, ZZ Top. Like take that stuff and here's what I like. John McPonte, and Pat Metheny, that kind of stuff.
Bernie and I will send each other back and forth songs every once in a while, and he got me onto Terry Kath, from Chicago. Tell him about Terry.
Oh, if people don't realize I feel like the best band of all time was the original Chicago. The first 3 or 4 albums. Live at Carnegie Hall still is one of my go-tos. It's a 4-record set. I have it on Spotify. But I think those guys were. I do have my Spotify. I've got a Chicago Deep Tracks playlist. Those guys had more songs that were not famous, that were fantastic, that were famous. Those guys.
I'm pointing out my my Chicago backstage passes that are
hanging on the wall right next to me.
I've worked for them 4 or 5 times over the years, and I got good stories and bad stories. But they're still a great band. But I totally agree that the early years of Chicago was just fantastic.
They were amazing. The Terry Kath, you'll never convince me otherwise. That guy was not the best guitar player to ever walk on earth.
Yeah,
just all the inspirations that guy could play that
really Hendrix level guitar playing on.
He had that blues. He had that bluesy sound to him, and almost like I sent that to you one time, Jordan. That I can't think what the song is called. What's the song by Chicago anyway? Uptown.
Yeah.
But type in Uptown Live by Chicago sometime and just listen to this guy play the guitar. It's like, holy cow. This is old stuff.
It's one thing that, I went down a real deep blues rabbit hole in 2010 through like 2012. And the one thing that I found interesting, growing up in Mattoon the way that I did was, that railroad, the city of New Orleans, from Chicago to New Orleans, that was also part of the blues trail as far as coming out of Mississippi and into Chicago.
Right.
And a lot of the early interviews that I was digging up from the 40s and 50s were these musicians that were known as Chicago blues players, but they were all basically born in Louisiana or Mississippi. Buddy Guy is actually, he was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I've worked for him a couple times. And when I was talking to him about this, he agreed that that city of New Orleans line, that could almost be like they think of Highway 61 as being the blues highway, but you'd almost think of the city of New Orleans as being the blues train way. And it went right through, goes right through Mattoon. And I still think of that every time when I'm crossing those tracks, is that I could follow those to Chicago, but I could follow them to New Orleans too,
Yeah.
And just a lot of music that was, through the migration that happened towards Chicago.
More than we'll ever know,
Yeah.
That's all stuff. That's all that was never talked about, I guess.
No, and sadly, when you go to Chicago, if you try to find the remnants, Mississippi is very well preserved. I'll add in there that. So I mean, you can go there and still stand and sit in the places where a lot of the history happened. But for blues, especially in Chicago, that was all Maxwell Street, and coming right out of the train station. In Maxwell Street, besides, it's what gave us the Polish and the Brat and lots of other things for American goodies. But it used to be the longest area to shop anywhere in the world. I forget how many miles long you could walk from one end to the other. And that's where a lot of the early Chicago blues musicians would jam. That's also where the first electric guitar was associated into Chicago blues music. But I love it that it goes right through Mattoon.
Yeah.
Yep. It's so, Mattoon is literally part of the Blues Railroad Highway.
That's neat. I remember your dad, Bernie. I would go hop in the De Buhr's truck to go run an errand for you guys, or take some cat food or water softener somewhere. And as soon as I start the truck, the jazz would be blaring. Your dad was rocking out, or he was jazzing out. Oh, he did crank it up. And gosh, how many years did Dad have up at the store?
Dad was born in the building. My dad was. He was actually born upstairs.
I forgot about that.
In fact, my mom and dad, they lived upstairs when I was born. So I was born at Gold Hospital February 1st, 1960. So I suppose 2 days later, I was upstairs in the apartment. So, but Dad was born. So I mean, basically, until the day he passed away, 83 years up there, in that little building.
Oh my gosh!
He never got very far in life. He told me.
Really? Well,
yeah, he just was born there and just about died there. Never got very far in life,
Yeah, well, we all know that's not true. And also just so many people. I remember your dad, whenever I'd be up there and somebody would come in and they'd, before they could quite get out, he said, "We've got it." And you just followed him around, and sure enough, he knew where every single thing was and what you were looking for. And oh my gosh, what a character your dad was.
Oh, it's just a good generation, I mean, I look at generation,
the greatest.
I think about sometimes like the old Knowles cafeteria downtown. That front table for about 2.5 hours every stinking day of the week was businessmen eating lunch. Rotating in and out. The couple. That's the businessmen's coffee group every morning. These same guys, they'd have coffee at 9:30 somewhere every stinking day. 11:30, 12 o'clock. This is the same guys. They'd be eating lunch every day.
Yep.
But you don't have that. You don't have the businessmen associations like you did back then. I mean, I don't think business people go out for coffee anymore. So they ain't got time. They just don't do it.
And ironically, there's more coffee houses than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I also remember a story. I'm going to have to tell a story on your dad here. You probably know the one I'm going to tell. Your dad and your mom went on a trip with my grandparents to New York. And I believe it was on I can't remember. Do you remember what the reason for the trip was?
First Federal Board, I believe.
First Federal Board.
First Federal Savings and Loan, yeah.
That's right. And at some point there was the Mike Tyson fight was going on across from their hotel at Madison Square Garden. And in the evening there, and they're trying to turn in, and all of a sudden, if they haven't already, all of a sudden there's gunshots everywhere. And apparently the line was, from your dad said, "Marge, get down, they're shooting at us." And I just remember, and he said there's so many people running out of Madison Square Garden. He thought that they were going around the back and coming back through again.
I thought the story too, but they were like an elevator together or something like that. Your dad says something, or Joe says something to my dad concerning how's your STD treatment going or whatever. And then the conversation became like they were partners or something, you know.
Oh, okay.
You know, I shouldn't say it that way, but
that's funny. I hadn't heard that one.
They had fun.
Yeah, they took several trips over the years.
They did, yeah. We're going through some pictures right now at my house of my mom and dad's pictures, and there's a lot of memories of pictures of out in Las Vegas and San Francisco and places like that of these trips they took, through First Federal.
Yep.
And they're all having a good time.
Yes. So what's new at the store, Bernie? Tell us about that. What you got going on?
Well, not too much. I'm kind of stepping back. I don't work like I used to. I'm there a lot. My nephew Derek kind of runs the place for us. His brother Nick is working full time for us now. He does all the books. My wife retired about a year and a half ago or so, and Nick stepped up to work there, which does an amazing job of doing that. We're still selling pretty much the same stuff. It's like the livestock business has picked up again. The last 4 or 5 years, these kids showing at these county fairs and these livestock shows has got to be a big, huge thing. Not just going to shows, but just what they're feeding now. That's got so specialized, these kids and their show animals and so forth, whether it's goats or pigs or rabbits or cows, whatever they're feeding. They've really got into these specialized feeds, and my nephew Derek's really taken on that stuff and does an amazing job with it. He's got access to several different lines of stuff, but so that's one thing that's kind of new, I guess, that's picked up the last couple of years. But still sell tons of pet food, just the same old stuff. Spring comes, it'll be garden season again, and just kind of do the rotation.
I was always amazed at your dad. I think I was 16 when I started working at Deur's, and they, your dad was up in his 70s, and 40 pounds of water softener on one shoulder, a 40-pound bag of dog food on the other, maybe a couple of them on top. I've seen you just as I'm driving by. It'd be amazing, to know about how much you guys have lifted over just with like the dog food and the softener. And has that taken a toll on you?
Oh, you lose your strength over time because of age. I think a lot of it, is my thing. But we have a forklift now. I look back, we had a semi-loaded dog food came in the other day, and I was thinking about that. I mean, used to we did that whole load one bag at a time.
Yeah.
And we would stack off 8 bags in the cart and take those 8 bags in the warehouse and stack them off on a wooden pallet. So you'd handle those bags twice.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have a forklift, but this is how things were done, but now that that truck's here and gone in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because of the forklift, and that's just
I definitely didn't run the forklift through some dog food bags on
just the greenhouse.
Yeah.
beam.
Yes, that's right. I remember taping some bags there. That was my training for the forklift. So
I think we raised the roof on the greenhouse, the bar on the greenhouse, just because of the it's called the Jordan Schilling approach now. It's safe to work there.
Oh boy!
Bang it!
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, hey, is it okay if we check back with you? We just talked with Chris, and we're going to do the same thing, and we've got all kinds of topics that we're going to cover, anything and everything Mattoon here. So we appreciate your time, and maybe next time we can get John Arena on the horn, because I know you guys have been neighbors there for many years, and you go way back, and I think that'd be fun.
We've been friends for years too.
Yeah.
I mean, even back prior to the Villa Pizza fire, I used to buy coffee at Villa Pizza every morning.
Really?
Just for years. And they moved down to the new location down there. Then they quit doing breakfast. And John's sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not. So I just don't go there for coffee since I say in the past year, but I'd see John every stinking mornings and visit with him. We've gone to umpteen hundred jazz concerts. We've been friends for years. It's not like we're just kind of neighbors on the avenue. And it'd be kind of fun to sit down with John and do a chit chat.
Yeah, he talks, and you and Tom, you and John could talk a lot of guitars too, because I know does he still have the collection? I'm sure he does.
He does not. He got rid of most of that stuff.
He did. Oh my gosh!
Right.
At one point in time, I know that he used to go around to all the shows, and wasn't the Flying V? That was his favorite guitar, wasn't it?
The Corona.
That's his license plate on his car.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, well, we'll get you guys back on the horn here, and again, appreciate you so much, Bernie.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Tom.
Oh man,
all right.
It's good to check in with Bernie
next time.
That was a great conversation.
Okay, take care.
I think we're gonna
Ladies
come
and
back
gentlemen,
to
gather around.
well,
Big things are happening in the proud little town of Mattoon, Illinois. A place where the corn stands tall, and now so do the ambitions. The brand new Emerald Acres facility has sprung to life, backed by our friends at Rural King.
Some
And
of
that's
the
not all, folks.
stories in Mattoon,
New establishments like Chipotle,
kind of like a
Chick-fil-A, and
truth is
Texas
stranger
Roadhouse
than
are rolling
fiction,
into
as far
town,
as,
bringing fresh
some of the
new
stories I've
flavors,
heard
new
over the years.
faces,
I would
and
agree
maybe
with
even a
that.
smile
And,
to
you-
young Johnny's
you
face,
too,
which is no
as
small
far as
feat these
just,
days.
If you'd never believe these things if you saw them, but we might get into Omega and might get into just any number of topics that have happened.
I had
here.
actually, traveling the way I have, since graduating Mattoon, especially early on, I would tell stories of high school events that homecoming assemblies where certain things happened where people wouldn't believe me. I guess I've always been fairly notorious for having stories that people wouldn't believe, but it was amazing how many of those Mattoon stories were true.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like if you live Mattoon, Mattoon.
Yeah.
That's the antage, I guess. If you've lived it, then you understand it. It's right there.
Yeah.
And I do want to add that everyone who does have ideas, feel free to shoot Jordan or I a message, and give us an earful. This is for everybody, as far as our own thoughts of the past in the old Toontown.
Yeah. Well, you can take different people that are from the same time or different people from different times as far as, where were you whenever the time theater was going on? Because I'm sure that my story of the time theater was different from someone else 10, 20 years ago before that. And then moving forward, it's like different.
I played live shows there in a band after it wasn't any longer a movie theater. So it evolved into lots of steps of my life.
Oh yeah, I was there when Mike Wake had a studio above there, and I went to see a Led Zeppelin tribute band, and I was just enthralled and just a great band. And I stood in the place and for long enough where I went to turn around to use the bathroom, and I pulled up a whole tile that was like not a small tile, but a huge tile. And I was walking around with, it was like the years of butter and pop and like everything that had gone on the ground. It was like I was just stuck and cemented to it. And so it was a funny night. So yeah. So again, share us your stories and any topics that you want to talk about. And anything and everything Mattoon,
Yeah, we are game. We want ideas. We've brainstormed ourselves and do have a pile, but we want other people's input because we do want that input so that other people can feel involved. I know we're going to get into the restaurant at some point, stories of Mattoon and Coles County. It's actually amazing. I won't get into it now, but it's amazing that how Coles County food ideas actually echo from coast to coast in America. It sounds, yet again, why I believe them. It sounds like too much, Tom, but it's true. There's two places in particular that have literally touched coast to coast and have changed the way Americans eat. And it all happened in Coles County.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we're going to sign off from now. So I guess take us out.
Play that song. Play that song.
Play that funky music, Tom.
Smells like a cornfield in here already.
All right. Till next time.